We've got quite a few team members here. I'm Taylor, I'm the founder and I'm the lead investigator. And we actually don't have Sarah on this time, who you've already met, but we've got G and Reem up in the corner here. We've got Sam down here. They'll say hi and introduce themselves a little better.
Hi, I'm Reem. I'm a location scout and a researcher.
Hi guys, I'm G. I'm a location scout. I do some filming and I'm part of the research as well.
Hey, I'm Sam. I'm a pre-investigator, admin assistant, and base control.
Yeah, got some good stuff covered there. Everyone's got a few roles. It's super helpful. We'll do a little bit of investigating, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Some things like before investigations, some things after. So yeah, and there's a few members not here who you will meet eventually, and Kyle, who's coming in any minute now in the next probably 10-15 minutes, we'll see him. And the topic today is astral projection, or really just any kind of form of like extended consciousness, I would call it, like an out-of-body experience. Some people might call it a near-death experience, which is a little bit more broad. Even strange sort of things like bilocation, where people are kind of in two places at once or have two perspectives at once. Remote viewing is probably a form of astral projection. More like instead of projecting your soul somewhere, you're just kind of projecting your vision, I guess. So lots of different kinds of, extended consciousness. Whether it's really like extended consciousness or not, we don't really know. There's a few different things that could maybe cause the feeling of being out of your body. Like things like medical conditions and like gravity. I know like pilots, when they're really high and they have like a gravitational shift, they've had experiences where they like have out of body experiences, emotional trauma, like depersonalization, stuff like that. So it's that fine line of trying to figure out, those things are for sure can happen, those medical things, we know that. But is there also maybe a different function that we can maybe train ourselves to do that really has to do with our soul? And I think that what would make astral projection compelling and interesting in a way that we could maybe say that it is like our spirit is our interaction with like an objective reality, right? Some way that we could prove it, which a lot of people have said would be like if we hide something, up on a shelf, like a number or a shape that you can possibly know, but you would have to float up there in order to see it, and then you would, tell it back. Something like that, where you could prove that you're not in like a dream world. It's not a dream. It's not a hallucination. You really did actually leave your body and interact with like the real world that everyone else experiences, right? Objective reality. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. There is a blog already up from last week's blog, where we go into like a bit more of a deep dive, or we talk about some of the studies that have been done with a little bit of evidence that shows that it definitely could be possible, and talks a lot more deeply about like the medical stuff. But for now, we're just gonna like chit chat about like what you guys think of astral projection. Like, do you think that's possible? Do you think it's real? Have you ever done it?
Yeah, I mean, I've never experienced it, to be honest. I work in palliative care, so I hear a lot of stories of people having near-death experiences and hovering over their body or seeing other people when they are unconscious. But I have never actually witnessed it myself or heard a first-hand experience from it. So I'm not sure. I'm pretty skeptical on a lot of it, and I don't believe that anyone has actually done what you said and been able to be able to identify something objectively.
Right.
But
So it's more of a perspective shift.
Almost like if you have experience in it, if you've seen that thing before, you can visualize it in your mind. Is more
same way we don't dream about faces we've never seen, for example.
Maybe
that's what they say, at least, that every face that you like dream of, it has to be a face you've already seen in real life, because our brain can't like create things like that. Maybe it's something similar where our subconscious already knows what maybe the ceiling area looks like, and then we piece it together from a different point of view, maybe. Yeah, you're in a really cool like field of work to be for stuff like that, for the field that we're in. Palliative care is like right towards the end, right? So
yeah, for sure. And I'm still new in the field, but it's commonly, there's some interesting things that are often a sign that somebody is close to passing away. And in the medical world, people will still very frequently see their loved ones who have passed and reach up towards them. And it's just a well-known phenomenon, but unexplained. Yeah. So there's a lot that we don't know about, and we probably won't know about until we are spirits of our own.
Yeah, I agree. And lots of claims I find of their living relatives getting like a little apparition of them right before they actually died. And it's interesting. Or maybe at the moment where they had died, getting almost like a visitation from far away, and just instinctively knowing like something's wrong, and then they call or something, they find out they've just died. And it's like, how do you explain that strange coincidence? How else would they know that something was off enough to reach out? And then how do they see that? That's another thing too, is like the apparitions of the astral projection. Can we see that the way we would see a ghost? Are there reported sightings or like evidence of people actually seeing astral projectors too, right? So that was stuff that I was looking for in the research. And I found claims, like those aren't not substantial enough really, but there's definitely claims all over the world of seeing people who are confirmed like were alive, they didn't die at any point, they were in a coma, for example, or they had a near-death experience, but then their spirit was seen like as a ghost somewhere else. Someone thought they were dead, and then find out that was a living person, which is crazy. We could be on an investigation one day looking for ghosts or whatever, and we could actually see the spirit of someone who's in a coma up the street at the hospital or something, which is kind of crazy to think about, that we might not be dealing with the dead, we might be dealing with just consciousness in general, just escaped consciousness.
That would be pretty neat.
Yeah, but there are weird things that happen in that moment of death, even like cats jumping on the bed, right, in hospitals, knowing that they're about to die.
There's some really neat stories.
Seeing things or talking to things that aren't there, and those, and it could be things firing off in their brains in those moments, when they're degenerating, obviously. But it's interesting to think about. It's a cool field. It's a sad field that you work in, but it's definitely fascinating to be right when they're on that precipice, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Crazy. What about you guys? Do you guys believe that it's possible?
Well, I don't know how related is that, but I had maybe a couple years ago incident that happened with me personally. It was with my dad, and his uncle. His was like his only uncle. He was very sick, and he was like on the bed, like just waiting for him to die. And he wasn't able really to see him because he was in a different country. So once my dad like had a chance to go and see him, literally a couple hours later after he left, like he see him and everything. And after he left, and we just got a phone call that he died.
Yeah,
it's not really explainable, so I don't know how.
Yeah, like people being able to control their consciousness. You hear about that, where they hold on for like even just the last 10 minutes, or just to see that last family member, and then immediately it's like they let themselves go.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy to think that you control death to some degree, maybe within the day or so. You can hold on for a little longer. You can hold your consciousness inside your body, maybe, which is almost the opposite of astral projection, I guess, and then you can decide to release it. when
Yeah.
you.
And he stayed there like for a couple days. He doesn't like he didn't go just for a visit, and when a couple hours, he stayed there for a couple of days, and he's like, okay, I like really have to go, and I will come back. And once he left, he died like a couple hours, maybe hour and a half later.
Mm. Yeah, maybe you just needed to have that sort of closure, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely believe in like a soul or consciousness. I believe in like the difference between the mind and the brain itself, you know. I don't know if there's necessarily a ton of evidence to back it up, but I know that there's not a ton of not evidence to back it up. I know that it's just an unknown territory for neurologists and scientists and even in the quantum world. So I think it's fair to, you know, speculate and believe, because it's not like one of those pseudoscientific things where there's tons of evidence to say that it doesn't exist. It's
Yeah.
just no one really has any idea. And there are some instances where there's a little evidence that it's possible, you know, beyond just claims of people seeing, you know, spirits of the living or of the dead. There are like lab studies that have been done for astral projection, and they've kind of gone okay. Like there have been a lot of inconclusive ones for sure, but there's been a couple incidences that were very like like I don't know, beyond probable chance of happening. Like someone did one time see something way high on a shelf in a controlled sort of lab environment. It was a 5-digit number, so I mean that's a long sequence, you know, in order and everything. And they did get that number right on, I think, the 4th night. So they didn't get it right away, but they also weren't able to fall asleep easily. And like, you know, you can't like astral project on command. That's not reasonable, you know. But on the 4th night, they were able to do that. Now there's a little speculation about how controlled the environment was, whether they were being monitored every second, or if they could have gotten out of bed and like, you know, gone up. It was not a perfect experiment, but I mean, I would think that someone was monitoring, you know, the room. They'd have to climb really high to get to like a high shelf, and you know, attached to electrodes and stuff. So, yeah, that one is not perfect, but it's interesting. And they did with kittens, like I was saying, like cats kind of detecting death. There was also a study with kittens trying to detect astral projectors. So I think it was the owner of the kitten was supposedly, you know, an avid astral projector, and they tried to do it on command in sort of a controlled, studied setting. And when they did astral project, supposedly into the room where the kitten was, they wanted to see if the cat would react at all to any sort of presence in the room and stuff. And pretty infallibly, the cat did get much quieter and calmer when their spirit was in the room, in a measurable way, you know, because there were other times where there were controlled tests and stuff. Is that a cat?
Oh yeah, I don't know where it came from. It must have astral projected here. That comment though reminded me of when we were doing that investigation at L'Orignal Prison, and G's dog was staring at the wall behind me, and we were wondering what on earth is he staring at, and we had that comment on the forum saying that there was a spirit there of my dead grandmother. So maybe Junior the dog was looking at Grandma.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Yeah, we've got a blog on that too, like the just the sensitivities of animals and kids, you know, and the possibility that they can detect things that we can't. And they certainly have a different spectrum of senses than we do. It not necessarily better or worse, just different type of vision, different area of the spectrum that they can see. So I mean, it's possible that they're catching some maybe some infrared, slight UV, some things that exist in other parts of the light spectrum that we don't see. It is possible they could be seeing those things. So babies too, like, well, young kids. And then our hearing and our sight changes eventually as we get older. But yeah, or just even if it's not their physical senses, just maybe their instincts. If you think about just that they're not jaded by society and you know, the the skepticism of society. They're just neutral and open. They haven't been told like, oh, that's not possible, over and over again, right? So they don't really have any expectations or preconceived notions. They just exist neutrally. So maybe that openness is what allows them to sense things just more intuitively and just have their senses more open.
That's super interesting. I was having lunch with a friend this week, and he was making a comment on how I'm interested in working with children, with older people who are palliative care, and in the supernatural world. And he commented, those are all within the same line. So children are at the very beginning of life, other people are at the very end of life, and then we have that supernatural world around. So I never really thought of that before, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's
cyclical,
spiritually connected areas.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both reaching that line. They either just came from the line or they're just at the finishing line,
Mhm.
Yeah, it's such an interesting spot to be, or people who are sick maybe, who have like, very serious illness probably exist to some degree on a slightly different frequency than, really vital people who are nowhere near the end of their life. And if you listen to their experiences, you can just tell that they've got more of that intuition. They're just a little wiser, They just, I don't know. It's like they just know things that we don't. They're experiencing things just that we can't really grasp.
For sure. And even dogs are often thought, or have often detected, disease or that something is wrong. And that's why we have guide dogs too, or service dogs, because they can sense things that normal people can't. And it's super
so crazy.
So it's super feasible for children to be able to sense something that we as adults can't understand.
Yeah. Do you have any like memories from like being a small kid of things that are maybe kind of sketchy now that you're like, maybe that was a ghost or something?
I was a weird kid, so I don't know what was real and what wasn't. I went through a vampire stage, and oh my goodness. Yeah, I
it's hard.
We could leave that in the past.
Enough time goes by, you like question yourself. Like, I don't know if that was real. That could literally be like a manufactured memory after all this time,
Absolutely.
I had a pretty crazy experience when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Don't know how you would classify it, if it's like out of body experience or you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I was about 10 years old and I got run over by a car. And literally, like, I was dead there on the spot. You know what I mean? I felt like where I was in like a black room with just a door open. And there's just a man standing there, and he said it wasn't my time. And they're pumping my chest with the machine, and literally I felt my body fall back. Yeah. And then there's just a whole bunch of people around me, and then I was rushed to CHIO. Like I said, I was 10 years old.
Damn, that's crazy.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, you've had like a near-death experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel like that was something profound? Does it feel spiritual, or do you think that it was like a brain chemistry thing going on?
I don't know how to like classify it, but it's something that I remember to this day, like really clear. You know what I mean? Like I just remember being in this room, it was like completely black. Like I said, I don't know what to classify it under, and as we're talking, so I'm like, okay, I guess this is kind of an out of body experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I said, I was pronounced dead, and they're using the machine on me. And all I remember before coming back is that I was in a room and it's completely black, and there's a door, there's white light, and a man was dressed in white, and he said it wasn't my time yet, and literally I just felt myself fall back into my body.
Wow. Yeah, people report that feeling of being like sucked like a vacuum back into their body, and I've experienced that because I've tried to astral project before, quite a bit, like in the past, and I don't know if I've ever like succeeded, but I think I've maybe lifted a little bit. But the feeling, I just remember the feeling was so strong, like heavy to pull back into my body. Like it was almost painful, that detachment feeling.
Yeah.
When I went online to sort of like I was on Reddit or whatever, looking at other people who had that similar experiences astral projecting, and they were all describing that it was really hard in the beginning to separate from their body, like it really wasn't, a natural thing, but they had to train almost to get that strength to finally actually peel away from their physical body. And it took tons of training to just leave the bed, and go a little further, a little further, a little further. And the whole time you're feeling cold because you're still attached by like a cord. Like so many people describe this type of cord connection to their physical body, like an astronaut almost, kind of floating away, but you've still got that, anchor. And eventually it gets easier and you can start going off into the world, but I just don't think I ever made it that far. You're in such a fragile state of mind too, because you have to be almost asleep. Like your body kind of has to be asleep, but your mind has to be awake. And so you just push it too hard, you wake up, or not hard enough, you fall asleep. And so it's really hard to actually be lucid and training something, in that time, while not just going over to the edge one way or another. And it's also hard to know if it was real because you are partially asleep. It easily kind of mimics what a sleep paralysis could look like, except less, scary. But people definitely do see, figures and stuff sometimes when they astral project. So then you have to wonder, well, is it sleep paralysis demons? It's this thing that your brain is doing because you're literally half dreaming. Or is it that they've actually entered some sort of astral dimension where ghosts and other dimensional beings live, and those are actual dangerous or not dangerous, entities, objective other entities that aren't a figment of their imagination, basically,
Now, has there ever been any videos of people doing it, recording for a span of 12 hours of someone trying to do this and what their body does or anything, or you haven't seen anything like that?
People have definitely tried to. So there were a couple experiments. Someone tried to measure the weight of the soul. There was a movie made about this, like a Hollywood movie. This was a very famous experiment, but it was a kind of old experiment, and so it wasn't done super great. It didn't have the best technology. They didn't have the scientific method really down. There were some flawed aspects, but they did think that the soul measured 21 grams. So he basically measured, a person on a measured bed, like it had a weight, like a scale. And right before they died, I think they did with dogs too. And at the moment of death. Hi, Kyle.
Hello. Sorry that I'm my tardiness here.
Oh, that's okay. That's all right. Yeah. We'll let everyone know you're going to pop in a little later.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just. I'm just talking about a study that was done to try to measure the soul.
Mm-hmm.
I think this was in the early-ish 1900s, but yeah. So they measured these people right at before the moment of death, and then the moment that they died. They were obviously already dying naturally.
Right.
Actually, the dogs weren't. I think they killed the dogs, but it was a long time ago. Things weren't cool back then, but.
That's what ethical.
So I was listening to you backstage. And you're right. So soul is the energy, right? Basically, and so the second law of thermodynamics is you cannot destroy energy. It could change forms, but you cannot. You cannot make it. Can't come out of nothing, or disappear, though it just changes states,
right? Which is a huge factor that leads me to believe that there could be consciousness, because we do have our atoms vibrate. We have energy for sure. We have thermal energy, we have electric energy and magnetic energy to us. That energy, it has to go somewhere. When your corporal being starts to rot away and stuff, there's still pent up energy from all the vibration that was happening, from your cells when you're alive. It has to go somewhere. But that's what this study was. They were trying to measure it the moment it left to see what the difference of weight would be, to see what it might weigh. And he got 21 grams, but he did it a few times, like I said, with some dogs, with some humans, and it varied. There was no difference with dogs, which led him to believe that dogs don't have a soul, which is also confirmed in the Bible. So they were really religious back then. So it could have been like a confirmation bias thing, or there were some aspects of the study that were definitely flawed. And most people believe that it doesn't have any real weight to it, pun intended, but it's interesting. I mean, no one's debunked it entirely. I don't think anyone's really tried to do it again. So it'd be interesting to try to do it in a proper controlled, study and see what happens. But yeah, and there's also been photography. People have tried to take photos the moment that has happened, but the technology that they were using is not really proven because we don't know what the soul is made out of. So how would we know like what kind of camera is going to capture it? So they're using a different kind of like a light capturing camera. I don't know exactly what it was called, but
yeah.
And they thought
it's all in the sensors, right? And that's what I am partly what I'm working on. I'd love to, get a little closer, anyways, maybe to catch a little more of this, because the previous team we were on, I mean, they just weren't working, the setup, and so there's got to be something different than the normal, the normal CCTV or any TV camera.
Well, yeah, I want to have fun with equipment and try to test the equipment. It's hard when there's no reference point, right? Like you take consciousness and there's no reference points anywhere around it in science because we don't know like anything about it. So we don't know what it's made of. So how can we measure it? We don't know what kind of machines to make to measure it because we don't know what function they need. Like when you're just missing a long bridge to something and you're trying to study the thing at the other end of the bridge without the bridge, it's like we are missing so many pieces to get there that it's almost impossible to properly prove anything, how do we measure it if we don't know what it is, right? It's the same as spirits. So I mean, that's why what we do is just the elimination method. We don't know what it is or how to measure it, but we know what it's not, and we know how to measure those things, right? So if we can prove what it's not and get rid of all those things, then we're left with something that probably is whatever it is. And it's interesting. We can't say what it is exactly, but we can tell people, here's a thing, and we've done our best to get rid of all the things that we know around it, and we're left with this mystery. Make of that what you will, and that's evidence. And eventually you stack evidence until it becomes proof,
Yeah, and keep at it, and one day you could stumble on it, not really knowing, just trying different things. That's what I'm doing, and
it's a puzzle, so we got to put those puzzle pieces, and it has to be one after the other because we can't skip steps. If we're finding evidence of like ghosts, but we don't have any of the pieces in between to prove that it's a ghost, like it's useless. But if we are actually taking steps in these scientific fields and we can get actual like scientists on board with what we do, which is why we're so strictly like scientific about it, is so that we have credibility to hopefully get some real resources and like funding from the scientific communities to actually explore these parts of consciousness and quantum and life in general. Then you can start actually slowly understanding these things. The more that we study the brain, the more that we study dreams, the more that we study meditation, things like that. That's how you get one piece, one in front of the other. And then all the rest of the stuff that we found will make sense when we finally can get there, So we're working way far past into something that is just beyond understanding, which makes it super interesting. But it's hard to know what to do with that, with the things that we catch, and to know even how to try to capture those types of things, because we don't know if the equipment we're using is right. We just have to trial and error it. We have to go off what other paranormal investigators have been doing and what kind of things haven't worked or what patterns we've noticed. That's all we have.
I know we're in general, I don't mean our team, but in general, this Paranormal Society are a little further off in the video end of things than the audio end of things. I understand the audio a lot more than the visual. Obviously, they don't have vocal cords, right? So it's some kind of sound is it's just pressure and waves, right? The signals, and so. I know how to measure the frequencies and signals and whatnot, but how they're doing it, so that's a mystery too, eh? Like it's not. That's why you get so much of that raspy, whispering. There's no vocal cords, eh? So it's being done some other way,
There's no physical force causing the vibration like our larynx does. to make a sound. So it's weird to think that this ether, this nothingness, is somehow making a hard sound.
Yeah.
Sometimes even we can hear with our own ears, which is pretty crazy when you think about how loud that actually has to be to really transfer through like multiple dimensions, maybe,
Yeah, the veil, yeah, piercing the veil. I'd say, and it's happened to me 2 times in a row now, or 3 times in a row. Sorry, I wasn't counting the tattoo parlor, where there was something heard in real time, multiple times. Maybe we were just lucky, I guess. I don't know, but it's hopefully it'll happen more frequently, like this. But sometimes you'll go like a dozen investigations and not hear or see anything, right? In real time, anyways.
Yeah, in real time. I would say rarely it feels like much is happening in real time. If something is, you usually find it later, but yeah.
One neat thing that I've encountered was I've worked with sound, but used through bone conduction. So you can actually put in earphones or headphones and lay on a pillow or a platform and hear music, even though it's not actually being heard with your ears. It's being heard through your bones. So when we only really recently learned about that sort of thing. So it could be even possible that it's some sort of other sensory input that our brains don't understand how we're processing it yet, but we're interpreting it as being heard, kind of like that bone conduction would have been.
Is it so? Sorry, is it actual music, or
It's
is
music,
it matrix?
It's music, but it's transmitted through bone conduction. So your ears are not actually hearing it, but your brain is still interpreting it as music.
Okay.
That's crazy.
It's very neat.
We know too, like there's a hemispherectomy or something that's called, where they, in really severe cases, they remove half of your brain, like entirely half of it, right? And so there should be no possible way that a human being could like still have language or still have like motility in their limbs and stuff, because that entire section of their brain doesn't exist anymore. That's like where the language lives or where the movement lives, right? But there are cases where it's the other half of the brain that's left just finds a way to learn those things, and people like recuperate almost entirely. Like they can communicate and have movement, even though those parts don't even exist, So our bodies can like mend and adapt in ways that we don't understand yet. There's something called visionless sight as well. I don't know if it's just pseudoscience or not yet. It's something that I didn't explore super deeply. It is related to this a little bit, like with remote viewing and stuff. It's kind of similar. I mentioned it in the blog, but I didn't go into like that rabbit hole this time. It might be a different blog topic, but it's instead of projecting your sight in a consciousness way, like remote viewing is, where you close your eyes and you can, see a different country accurately, let's say. It's actually like if I had an eye mask on and I could read a book in front of me without my eyesight. That's what visionless sight is versus remote viewing. And some people claim to be able to do that. There's entire organizations that have these like clubs basically of just people that train to do this. They have like, these intense eye masks. I actually have one. It's got like a little bit of a indentation where the eyes are, so it really is quite black, and it's all sealed around here with spongy, so zero light gets in. It's completely dark, and people apparently over time train themselves to sort of project their consciousness out and just interpret things with their soul basically, and it goes back and tells the brain what it saw basically. It is like remote viewing, but I mean you can do it with the stuff that's right in front of you, and blind people could potentially learn to see with other eyes. But that sounds stretched, because I feel like we'd already be doing that if that was possible. So I don't know how.
Is it tailored like a heavy mask, or like what's the mask consist of? Like,
yeah, I can show you actually. It's pretty close beside me. Right back.
They say we only use, just a small percentage of our brain at one time. And I mean, imagine if we were using all of it. So maybe it is just a part of our brain that we still don't know how to tap into.
It's like that I don't know if you ever seen that movie, Sam, where the girl, she's in a foreign country and they got like this drug to use the full capacity. I don't know what it's called.
There's a few like that. Is it Lucy or like there's
Lucy? That's the one, Lucy, where she takes it and she starts using like more capacity of her brain that she can turn into energy and whatnot. You know what I mean? So
yeah. There's a myth, you know, that you only use 10% of your brain, but it's not. You use 100% of your brain, but you don't use it all simultaneously, or you'd be super overstimulated. So you have the capability to access pretty much every region of your brain. But yeah, at one time you would only be using like a small section, like 10% or so.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
So a movie about that remote viewing, Taylor, the U.S. Army even, not only the U.S. Army, but the men who stare at goats, right? Yeah. So that's a good one. Like that was a real thing, you know. They brought in people who had that ability, and they trained them, you know, to spy more or less. Yeah.
That's in the blog as well. The U.S. Army did a ton of experiments. Actually, that's fully confirmed and declassified. All the documents are there. They had Project Stargate. They had MK Ultra. They had
the Philadelphia experiment,
Project Center Lane. Yeah. So they were working with all different kinds of psi abilities and even just like crazy stuff. They were using crystal balls. They're trying to see if witchcraft was real. They're doing everything. Hypnosis.
So do you know about the Philadelphia experiment? It ties in with what we're talking about basically, but it's time travel as well. So they were on this ship in Philadelphia, that experiment, and I don't know what kind of device they had, but apparently they did shift into another time, but when they came back they were stuck in the hull, you know, so they didn't come back in the exact same spot.
I heard something about a boat, how they had a big ship and they tried to time travel or something with it.
Yes, the battle.
A lot of crazy stuff.
And whatever,
hard to say if any of it was successful.
Well, the guys that weren't killed, I guess they did say briefly seen some other realm or time, you know, like they swear by it, but who knows? You know, maybe it just did something to their, you know, region of their brain where it was a dreaming thing, or I don't know. But they swear by it.
The government's been doing those studies now for probably close to 80 years. And I mean, if it didn't work, they wouldn't still be investing in it. But they currently have $4 million still in the U.S. Army still has $4 million invested in bioenergy and Reiki, acupuncture. So a lot of these metaphysical, like naturopathic types of areas are being studied with a good amount of money, like a good amount of budget. So I don't think
that's the ones we just know about, right?
True. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the things they can't study anymore because it was like unlawful, like the psychedelics and stuff. The way they went about that was so dangerous and unconsensual and stuff. But I mean, they still use psychics and stuff. So I don't know why they would do that if they had like 0 success rate, right? There would be no reason to be continuing research or using those services. You know, there's still police departments that use psychics to find missing bodies and things like that. You know, it's still very much there's a market for it, so it has to be working to some degree. But then you look at like the $1 Million Challenge, right? Which we also have a blog for, and you know, someone was offering $1 million that they could prove any kind of supernatural ability whatsoever, and there have been tons of these challenges since then. There's one in Quebec right now. You can get $10,000 if you go to Quebec and you can prove literally any psychic ability, ghosts, anything that's like pseudoscientific that the science community doesn't usually regard. You can prove it, money is yours. And no one has ever won any of these prizes in any of these campaigns, you know? And the basis for it, you know, because you might argue, well, maybe they're set up unfairly so they don't have to ever give the money away, you know? But the basis for the rules of the experiment is decided between the participant and the people holding the campaign. They come to an agreement before they do it of what the conditions need to be to prove that it's true. and the candidate agrees, yeah, I can perform under these conditions. Everything is fair. I'm good with this. You're not being sketchy in any kind of way. And then they're not able to perform. I don't know. No one has ever successfully beat the odds of chance and been able to prove that they could, be a medium or be a psychic or remote view anything accurately. So, these things keep getting tested, even with the incentives of money, which if there was any incentive, to really make people come forward, I don't know, it's just doesn't seem to work. And all of these famous psychics and stuff are suspiciously avoiding these things. They're backing out at the last minute and stuff. Makes you wonder, are they afraid of their reputation? Is it because they know that they might not be able to perform properly and prove their abilities? So.
Well, back to the brain and how much we use from our brain. There's a lot of people, I heard it from a lot of people, believe that they that the time you were born, the second you was born, you seen the tape of your whole life, until your death moment. And that's why there's a lot of people, when you see someone someone you don't really know, oh, I feel like I know
Deja
you,
vu.
or I seen you or something.
Yeah, deja vu and or dreams or prophetic dreams or at the beginning of your life maybe, and at the end of your life you see these flashes of your whole life. And people say that you choose your kind of your life course before you
Yeah.
born. You choose your parents and stuff like that, and so everything's a little bit familiar. You just can't put your finger on it, but you've seen these people before, or and there's a theory that certain souls kind of stay together for a multiple lifetimes. So maybe your mom in this life was your sister in your last life, or your husband, or anything, and you carry this sort of tribe with you, this collective of souls, and then you meet acquaintances that are new souls and stuff along the way. But there are certain, and those are like soulmates. That's maybe why you feel really connected to these people, or their family, and you're already just together from birth. But sometimes you just have that familiar feeling. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like balls of energy that gravitate to each other, right? And
Yeah.
yeah.
You think about laws of attraction too. Yeah, it could be just these traveling. I kind of think that we're all just fragments of one sort of energetic source, So I think we really are like the universe experiencing itself, and there is some degree of oneness, But yeah, I don't know. The soul could be so many things. There's so many theories around its capabilities and stuff. I don't know. There's only a few studies that are super compelling to me about astral projection. It's hard to say, but they've definitely proven things like trance meditation and stuff like that have massive effects on the human brain. So it's also not that crazy to think, if you're really meditating for a long time and activating those larger parts of your brain, that you can't maybe access information or things from a different timeline, because time is all happening simultaneously. It's not linear the way we think of it.
I just feel like there's still a lot more that people got to figure out. You know what I mean? Look at the psychologist that found EDMR, right? He was just one day walking past a whole bunch of poles. Mm-hmm. And as he's walking past these poles, he realized that he can go back and look at his memories. And so now I know a little bit about it, but not too much. Now, so when psychologists, if somebody has PTSD or something, and they want to bring them back to this position in their life, or something happened, he sits there and they put these headphones on, and it's just beeping sounds, and then you kind of get into the state of mind where he can get into your mind to bring you back to that moment, to relive the accident or whatever happened. You know what I mean? It's just, I just feel like there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been found out yet. But this guy here, if you have a chance to look up EDMR and how the person found it out, and this psychologist was just walking by these poles, and then he figured out to do a couple of sounds and stuff to trigger the brain to go into different parts of it. You know what I mean? So
that's crazy. There's the brain is the brain and the ocean are the two things that we know nothing about. Pretty much nothing. That's great. Yeah, it makes sense that you could trigger something with the same sort of condition to jump back somewhere. That's kind of what residual hauntings are, right? When you think of like a moment getting trapped in materials, like in its surroundings, like in the wooden beams of a home, you know, a traumatic, like a woman crying, you know, and her spirit just in that turmoil, and then
something like with the magnetic properties, like quartz or crystal or just
wood,
windows,
limestone,
you know,
conductive materials,
sandstone, limestone, the quartz in it and whatnot.
Yeah, we have a blog on that too, like landscapes that are kind of conducive to hauntings and types of materials that might hold in, like the stone tape theory, you know. So you've got that burst of energy that happens, and then you've got it held in, and then 100 years goes by, let's say, but then let's say so another woman who's alive, if the other one's way dead, comes in and cries in that bathroom or something, and then all of a sudden she turns and she starts hearing this woman crying, you know, because that same emotion matched the other one, and it triggered that loop to start, you know.
So that's
the weather is the same as it was on that night, and it triggers the atmosphere to release that or something. That's the theory behind residual hauntings anyways. Things like cannonball fire, things that are like ghostly, but they're not ghosts, right? They're not actual trapped spirits. They're just impressions, like left on film almost.
Yeah, it's just like a cassette
turned into a film,
VHS, whatever, right? And,
it's just a time loop. You're just watching a moment, you know, or a snapshot, like soldiers marching, right? And you could try and wave at the ghost or something, and they're going to walk right through you, right? They're not interactive. They're not intelligent. There's no actual consciousness there. You're seeing like a mirage that used to exist, right? Kind of in between worlds. It's more like time travel, I would say, than it is like a ghost.
Yeah, well, it's like watching an old movie, really. Right? Yeah. It's they're not really there, but they're on tape, you know.
Yeah, even footsteps. I mean, it could be any kind of sound or a loud sound or a traumatic moment. That's, I mean, theoretically, you know, there are claims of those types of things happening, and that's sort of what we go on.
We could find the trigger to how to do that, like without a human doing it, you know, like mechanically or electronically, whatever. I'm going along the lines of high powered lasers, you know, and so there's I'm not going to get into that today, but that's one of the more extreme things I'm looking into.
yeah, I would mess with like magnetic fields a bit, try to, you know, see if that does anything. Weather, temperature. We have no idea what could possibly trigger like a moment. But if
there probably multiple things.
Millionaires, so work on that. Yeah, and there's also, I wanted to talk about some like historical people that were famous for astral projection, but also like bilocation, like being alive and being able to have one perspective and also project their consciousness somewhere else. There was like a woman named Yvonne Aimé de Jesus. She was a nun, and she was in jail. I can't remember why, but she was in prison, and she apparently escaped prison by basically astral projecting out of it. And someone even saw, I think it was her son, saw her apparition at the same time at home, far away from the prison. And it was just like considered some miracle, because there was no possible way she could have gotten out of prison, but she did, apparently, by just separating her soul and her body and then just hopping almost out. There's also Pythagoras. I don't know how to say his name, but I think the mathematician in ancient Greece. He was known to bilocate. And then I was thinking, like, that when you think about the Salem witch trials, that could have been what was happening. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Salem witch trials, but there's a million different theories of what happened. There was like a mass hysteria sort of thing, where all these people were claiming that there were spirits and attacking them and stuff. And, you know, a lot of people believe that it was like rumors, basically, but there also were a lot of people seeing things. And some people think it was like the yeast in the bread that caused like mass hallucinations because they had a really wet farming year. But I was thinking that it could have possibly been astral projection, you know,
or some type of conjuring, or, you know,
things like that, were just like seeing apparitions of people who are alive, you know, in mass amounts. You know, those have happened throughout history in a lot of different like religious texts. You can find them. How much truth there is to that, I don't know. It's not like we really hear about those anymore in modern day. So you have to wonder, like, why were all these crazy supernatural things happening before and then they're not now? Were we just describing maybe all these people with sleep paralysis, or like, you know, and they didn't have the words for that. They didn't know how to explain those things yet. But yeah, I don't know. Has anyone tried to astral project?
No.
No.
Content to be in my body. I'd worried I get lost on the way and just
Yeah. It's never happened to me like where I've like looked at my own body. That I feel like that would freak me out so much. But I know a lot of people that have said that they've like looking down at their bodies or something, you know, not even anything crazy happening, you know, even just minor accidents or like, you know, in their sleep or something, they just find themselves like looking at their own bodies and then whoop, they're back to normal. And it's like just this random thing that sort of happened.
Now, do you think anyone's ever been able to do that and like go into someone else's body? Like if they got two people and they're both doing it, but they switch.
They switch. Freaky Friday.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't read
everything. All those stories come from a kernels of truth, right? So there might have been something close to that or something like that, but less dramatic, right?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of TV shows like try and do that kind of concept. I don't know. I feel like someone's probably tried it.
Yeah.
Humans are reckless. Why would we try and do that? I'll look it up later and see if there's any claims of trying to do that. I know that there's like supposedly a danger to astral projecting, like once you've left your body, if someone comes and disturbs your physical body, like tries to wake you up or something, you could like be at more risk of a heart attack or something, apparently, because like your body is just, it's not right without, you know, your spirit in it, and it can be really like startling to your nervous system, and then your soul has to like snap back really quickly, and like just the disorientation of it can be like dangerous, you know. But I would imagine there's no evidence really for that. But
So keep a note if you try it. Make sure nobody disturbs you.
Yeah. In a quiet room. Oh, I have the eye masks too.
Yeah, let's take a look at it.
Yeah. I'll turn the light on real quick here. It's very comfy, actually. I mean, I highly suggest it if you wear eye masks while you sleep, because I hate the light. I'm like a vampire, but
That's what Reem needs. As soon as the light enters, she's like, ah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see that there's like a divot.
This kind of looks like a little tiny bra.
Yeah, basically is. It's super squishy. It's like memory foam around here, but it's pretty like tight up against the face. Like no light gets in here, but it gives enough space for your eye. Like it's not pressed up against your eyelids.
You can open your eye, but you just see black, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it gives some space so you could even have your eyes open. There's also like, I remember when I was a kid and I would like do all these like make yourself hallucinate without drugs sort of things, where you'd watch like the spiral on the screen, then you'd look and everything's like morphing. And there was one where you would cut a ping pong ball in half and you would put the, you know, the rounded sides on each of your eyes. And then you'd put like an FM radio just to white noise. And then apparently you would like hallucinate after a while, because I guess just the cup, like the concaveness of darkness, it's just, there's zero stimulation. It creates just a darker than dark, you know? And then with white noise, there's no auditory stimulation. So your brain starts to make up stimulation by making shapes and forms and stuff. So I don't know if, you know, that might be the concept behind this, except that somehow instead of seeing made up shapes, maybe you start to see real things in the real world. I originally got these to try the visionless, you know, sight, but then I never ended up practicing it. Now there's just my sleep mask, but
it's kind of like the sensor. What is it? The hyperbaric chamber, or where you're closed off?
Tanks. I've done those too. We have one in Ottawa.
But that's for auditory as well. Well, all your senses really, right?
I think for the next investigation, you should bring those. And whoever's using the headphones, it's like you can't open your eyes. You're totally
Yeah.
focusing on the spirit box or whatever. You know what I mean? So you got the
You really trance. You go inwards.
yeah. You
Like
know what I mean?
isolate yourself.
Maybe you start getting more of a visual sort of impression from the spirits too. If they can't use the voice, maybe they start
Yeah.
giving you visual.
That'd be pretty cool to try.
Yeah, yeah. I was watching this show. It's on Netflix with he's a psychic, Tyler something. He's like a celebrity psychic, and I don't know if he's real or not. He seems, genuine, but he has like a shed that he goes in, and it's completely like dark and everything. He just sits there. There's even a mirror in it, and he'll just sit there and he'll kind of scribble and he'll start like seeing things just in the darkness because he cuts all his senses off. So then he gets more and more impressions from the spirit world.
There's a few of them that do that. Yeah, that close themselves off.
I heard something when people are investigating with a mirror. If they put a mirror in front and a mirror in back, it does some weird effect, and like the spirits can cross through.
Yeah,
you have like a mirror in front of you and a mirror in back.
Like a portal.
That makes a portal or something.
Stand in the middle of it.
Now I like that idea because right now I'm working on. It's all analog, but it's all different devices that measure like energy going boom, boom, back and forth from measuring it like luminosity, right? The EMF, any signal really that you want. I like that. If we do an experiment like that,
I think it'd be pretty cool. Like if we
this too, it's a really good idea.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you could catch something going through both mirrors or something.
Yeah.
With the ghost box too, and this, like right in the middle, you're literally just like
Trance. It's a little terrifying, I'll be honest.
Yeah, you're like, I even find that I trance like so hard with those headphones in when the ghost box is going. It's like sometimes I start to like trip out a little because I feel like I'm like falling or something. Like I don't know, my feeling in my body. I get really disoriented sometimes if it's like long enough because I'm focusing so hard and it's so much white noise and it's just overstimulating a little bit and maybe some sort of spiritual influence too, but you just start feeling like you go so deep inside yourself you forget that there's like an outside world for a little while. It's just true trance. I couldn't imagine with the eye mask. I don't think I have my eyes open anyways when I do it, but
it just helps, you open them for 1 second, like it's pitch black,
Yeah.
You're cutting your sense of vision, right? And then you're just focusing on their sense,
No, so how I would do that if we do that experiment is I have like it's almost looks like a perimeter fence, right? So I put it around if there's 2 mirrors, I put it around 2 mirrors, right? And hook up all the devices to it, and then kind of correlate with if you hear something some time, and then if it moves the dials more or less, right, because it's all analog, we could potentially back up those hits, right? So.
Yeah, mirrors have history in every culture, I think, of having to do with the spirit world. And even though we do things scientifically here, part of the job is exploring all these theoretical things, even if they sound crazy or they sound totally fictional, that's the job. We're working with theories here. Like we have nothing else to work with, as long as we conduct them in a scientific way, as long as we test that equipment in different ways, trying to get it to be faulty, trying to see if we can stump it, trying to make sure it, works.
How big would you think the mirrors would have to be? Like the skinny long ones or like a rectangle or?
Well, you would want to work with ones that have the history of something happening. Remember Taylor, like at Dennis's place, that like mirrors like that, that have
trapped. They're supposed to trap souls. That's
right.
Dies in front of them or something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can trap souls. You can see them. You can scare them away.
They're portals, basically, too.
Yeah,
supposedly.
I wrote a little bit in today's blog, actually, a little bit about mirrors and different ways you can use mirrors to actually get rid of ghosts, which is to like show the reflection back to them and scare them away. Like masks, things like that are used to like scare demons away. But
Yeah.
using them, but you could also, they're also portals for spirits, kind of bit of both sides. But yeah, I would love to explore mirrors because
I
I
like
have
something
had personal experiences with mirrors, and they've got so much folklore. I'd be interested in testing them. You know, we get a real silver mirror, you know, like a brass
Mhm.
one, and something with maybe history to it, ideally. So that
Right. So yeah. Well, you only need history with one of them, right? So because the second one we could have our own, you know, like you said, like an old silver style mirror, and then put it behind you, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever, but have the other mirror with the activity going on,
Yeah.
and then test that out, you know.
Yeah. Well, everyone, keep your eyes if you hear of any haunted mirrors.
Yeah.
One of the ghost hunting shows I watch, they took a mirror and they blacked it out,
Mm-hmm.
and they said it's supposed to open up a portal for the spirits to come through or something with a blackout mirror. I don't know if it's real or whatnot, but they took this mirror and they blacked it out and they put a triangle on the back of it and a whole bunch of stuff, and they're trying to get the spirit to come out to see if it'd be active in the building. You know what I mean?
It sounds like they did some sort of sigil thing with like an intention. They used some sort of symbol or whatever, but
Right.
it's weird because the blacking out, like that's usually to stop spirits. Like people cover mirrors, right, with sheets and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's to keep spirits in them, you know, like the opposite of a portal. So it's interesting that they blacked it out, because I would imagine it would have the opposite effect, but maybe it's different. Like the way that they did it, it's a different thing.
It's a new show on Discovery. I don't know if you've seen it. It's like this lady, she buys this town, and all these buildings are from a whole bunch of different places, and essentially it's all haunted, but the objects attract her to these weird buildings that she buys, and she's putting all in the places. So it's a pretty interesting show.
Cool concept, like a whole ghost town to yourself.
Yeah. Literally, she's got like 100 acres and like 10 buildings, and
Damn.
yeah.
And I think there's something wrong with the lady as well, because like she's living there and
And she doesn't want to leave.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what happens with, like, if you got a strong spiritual, you know, attachment. It's like you're not all in reality. You become drawn to these things, and it's almost like they're living vicariously through you a little bit. You're kind of like partially possessed a little, you know, you're a little off. Feel connected to them, and like you want to spend more time with them. It's not the natural instinct that I think a person would have. Most people would try and run away, you know, but sometimes you get in too deep, they get into your head, you know, and you start to form this weird connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a cat lady, but she collects spirits instead of cats.
Yeah. Who knows what happened in her life to lead her to this? This could be all of our futures. A couple wrong.
I don't know if you guys seen any of the when we did the tattoo parlor. Josh, he was asked by a psychic on, well, ours or mine, I should say, psychic online, during the live show, if he wanted to get rid of his attachments, and he said no.
Yeah, it's the same with Aaron Goodwin from Ghost Adventures.
Yeah.
He's basically said that he's doing like an experiment of just seeing how long he can go in all these like messed up places, not having any spirit cleansing. So he's never been cleansed of anything the whole time they've been doing this, going to all these places, you know, and he's just gathering, like he's just collecting, you know, the energy. And yeah, at this point, I think that he just doesn't really want to. You just become part of it in a really weird way. You can't extrapolate it. You know, Kyle and I kind of saw that. Can't get too specific, but with the experience that we had, where someone that we know was being affected, like their personality was being affected in like a really weird way. They didn't want to leave the building. We knew we had to get them to leave the building. That's what we had seen on all the shows. At least that was the only thing we could think of to fix this, was to get them off the property. And because it had been going on for hours, and like, okay, enough. This person's like not well anymore, and like we've documented things, but now we have to like try to help them and trying to get them off the property, and they didn't want to. They wanted to stay in the house, you know. Even though
something that go ahead. Something that to add to that is what we were talking about, mirrors. Remember the mirrors? He was staring into those mirrors for hours, looking for something, or you know,
that there's something in the mirrors, and we all have to look in the mirrors. And said when he looked in them, we asked him, like, when you look in the mirrors, what do you see, you know? And he was like, my eyes are black. I don't know. There were like a million mirrors in this place. Like, it was super weird.
She's scared of mirrors at nighttime. She won't even look at a mirror at nighttime when it's dark. She like just walks right by it. She says,
yeah, it freaked me out. I have
to go to the mirrors, and I just like don't look at all. Like, I can't.
I think it was Sarah who was saying she's
so scared
killed by mirrors. We'll have some people not part of these experiments. I think that's okay.
Is anybody afraid of dolls? Those, you know how some people are afraid of dolls?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with dolls.
I would love to have like any experience with a doll. One time, like it was a haunted doll, and I held it like the whole time during an investigation, but nothing.
Because if that's so, then you'll want to do the tattoo. We can do the tattoo parlor again, and I can tell you that I've heard some right out loud real-time EVPs, and there's a ton of those old haunted dolls. She collects haunted dolls, old haunted dolls. Yeah. And other stuff, like she has a tombstone in there, you know, so a real tombstone.
And then there you wonder if extended consciousness can then just occupy like something like a doll, you know, or an object, which is super weird to think about. What would incline a ghost, you know, let's say you die and then you're in purgatory, unfortunately, like what would incline you to like be on the rocking chair or something, you know, or a doll for the rest. Like that doesn't really sound fun. I'd rather
it doesn't sound right unless it's a linchpin, you know, like a what would you call that? Like a point where you can hold on to, you know, kind of like a linchpin, you know.
Well, maybe it's because they can animate themselves. Some dolls have things that help them, you know, make contact easier or something. But it's interesting to think that you can just kind of occupy like that. Everything's just like a vessel, sort of, and you can pop in and out of things.
Yeah.
But, well, does anyone have any added anything? I think
did we talk about
the astral project?
Yeah, did we talk about shadow figures yet, or are we gonna? Or
well, we're a little over the hour here. I mean, we talked about like living apparitions, you know, like
no, that's fine. That's a whole show on its own. The shadow people.
It could be a shadow, it could be a mist. I have no idea what that would present itself like. Probably as different as a ghost would, you know. Just
well, it's I think it is different than an app. Like not a living apparition, but one you can make sense of, right? Where it's just black, and it's I think it's a negative energy, not negative as in bad, negative as in like opposite of light. You know, like when you take the old style pictures where you got the negatives with the actual pictures.
Yeah.
So that was left there, you know, that part of that.
Because it wouldn't be the same as dead, you know, because you've got this cord, so there's still part of you that's attached to your body. So it could be like your apparition is missing something.
Yeah.
Because you're not completely detached, right? It's not a full form of the energy. So yeah, it could appear differently. It makes sense.
Yeah.
You know? Stronger or less strong, maybe because you've still got that life in you. So
or you're getting into the out there physics with the dark energy, you know, and whatnot. Who knows, eh?
Yeah. Aren't we always getting into the physics? That's the whole thing. But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna look into Freaky Friday stuff after this and see if anyone reported that, because that's interesting. But
yeah, I'd like if you find anything, send me off, because I'm interested. You know what I mean? It just like imagine people are like, okay, we're doing this and we're just switching bodies for the week, you know, like just. Curious, you know.
If people can astral project, why not switch? You know.
Yeah.
There are things
shared, you know.
Yeah. Have you heard of like shared dreams where people like report like meeting up in a dream and then they actually both report accurately like what happened?
I've heard of that, which is interesting.
Yeah, which is that has to be sort of like astral projection, right? Because if you're not in your figment of your imagination, you're in some sort of objective reality because both people saw the same thing, experienced the same thing from two different beds, then that has to be some shared reality, which makes it objective in some way, you know?
Yeah.
I've actually had a mutual dream. Maybe I'll say that story for another time. It was super crazy. I had the exact same dream as someone else the very same night, very same moment, same dream. And we both saw Robin Williams in our dream. He was a bus driver in both of our dreams, and he died that night.
Wow.
Yeah, so I don't know. I believe in mutual dreams, obviously, because there's no way I could ever explain that. And that has to be some sort of shared, like, extended consciousness, you know. It can't be like coincidence. That would be insane. But I don't know. Yeah, so astral projection is like such a broad term for like a million different things that could possibly happen, I guess. But super fascinating.
Yeah, for sure.
Very cool.
Cool. Well, I don't have anything else to add. If anyone else does. We're all going to try it tonight. We're going to report back. Yeah, cool. Well, thank you guys all for joining me. Thank you to everyone watching. Yeah, and then we'll keep you posted what's going on next month, and hopefully see some new faces, some familiar ones. And
I did want, before we leave the air, I guess. When would everybody be able, or most of us be able to do an investigation? Because I can then contact Leia from the ink and iron tattoo.
yeah.
That would be a perfect start.
We're at the end of June. We're available.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys can hold off that long, but
Oh yeah, we can. Yeah.
I mean, but anytime
There's a few people who aren't available for the summer. We'll take this over in the group chat because we don't really edit these.
I just wanted to put the bug in the ear. So
for sure. I have a calendar where I'm blocking everyone's like availability off, so I can see if there's weekends when at least most people are available.
Yeah.
And not post-summer kind of thing. We'll focus on podcasts throughout the summer if we have to. People are really busy, and we'll do, the blogs, and we'll just, interact a bit with our followers and stuff.
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good night, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Yeah.
Okay. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.